Good evening, Wood County. I'm Brooke Ebersole, General Manager here at BG24 News. Every week we bring you the stories that matter most on campus, in the community, across the state, and across the nation. The Producers Panel is where we take a step back and talk about these stories in our own opinion. But these opinions do not reflect the views of the organization and do not impact the way we cover these or any other stories. Tonight we'll discuss the success of Dance Marathon, a fundraising event held on campus. Then we'll dive into the recent string of car lot robberies taking place in BG, before finally discussing a student film festival on campus. It's all here on your BG24 News Producers Panel. Thank you for joining your BG24 News Producers Panel tonight. I'm going to take a minute and introduce our panel here. To my right is Katie Wernke, Sports Director at BG24, and to Katie's right is Matt Heitkamp, Executive Producer. Thanks for being here with me tonight.
No problem.
Last weekend, BGSU hosted Ziggython, better known as Dance Marathon. The 32-hour event raised over $341,000 for the Children's Miracle Network Hospital. BG24 was there for all 32 hours of live coverage, hour by hour. We were posting on all social media sites. That was definitely a fun but tiring experience for all of us.
Yes, it was awesome. I know I was there for the majority of it, and just the atmosphere was awesome, and they raised more money than they've ever raised before. So it was really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, we actually just saw a shot. That was my favorite Miracle Child right there, playing with the flag on our microphone, and he spent probably about half an hour with me tossing that thing back and forth and running around with it. He was going around showing everybody, look what I got from the news. Like, oh, it was so much fun.
And that's something that there's so many things that went on during the 32 hours.
It was very crazy and loud and very hot as well. When you're in the middle of that rave, it's very warm.
Really?
Oh, bet,
yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of gross, but it
was
was also very fun.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, the dancers didn't know like what was going to be coming up next, right? So they didn't say, oh my gosh, it's almost 3 a.m., time for the rave. The rave just kind of like hit them.
They're like, I'm pretty sure that they're not like, they don't know like the schedule of like the, because obviously like different bands come on at different points, different events, different singers, a cappella groups, you name it, they did it, which was really, really cool. And I mean, you got to give it up to those dancers because they were up and at it the whole time. I mean, at times the energy did seem to die down expectedly, but would obviously come right back up then when another event would start.
Yeah, and I know that they did implement sitting down every like 15 minutes per like 3 hours.
Well, they did, like they had like breaks for like their lunch and whatnot, the lunch and dinner, and then they could also like pay money in like the lounge area to sit down.
That's
so
nice.
like so many dollars per minute to sit down.
Yeah, because I gotta imagine that raises a little bit of a health concern. Let's stand on your feet. I know they like made a big presentation right at the beginning. Don't lock your knees. If you feel thirsty, it is already too late. You better go get water. You better be drinking just because you need to be drinking water, not because you're thirsty. Because if you're thirsty and you're on your feet for 32 hours, that's not going to end well.
Yeah, and we saw the hockey team there, a bunch of different sports teams. I know you interacted with the hockey team.
I did, yes. I played a little bit of hockey. Scored a goal, so maybe I'm a future hockey player right over here. But no, the hockey team was there. There was the gymnastics team, the BG High Flyers. There were just a lot of different activities each hour, which I think was really good to keep the like momentum up and the energy up.
Keep the morale up. And I believe this year's Dance Marathon, their ultimate fundraising amount was like $341,000 and then 700 something, which I believe was a record-breaking amount.
Yeah, it was record-breaking, and the bikers also broke the amount of record that they brought in too, because that's obviously a big thing where the energy picks back up towards the end, is when the bikers come in all the way from Cincinnati. Now that's a bike ride. I mean, you got to give it to them. You got to.
Absolutely. 60 miles each day is absolutely. I would not be able to do that.
Oh, no. And between what Bikes for Takes raised and what Dance Marathon raised, in all 20 years that Dance Marathon has been at BG, that is the most amount of money they've ever raised. So that that in itself says something about how hard the students pushed for this and how much it meant to them.
Yeah, that's one thing. Dance Marathon is such a big event on this campus, and when I was at UC, I actually participated in our Dance Marathon one year, and if I remember correctly, it was only 24 hours, but just there was not this amount of energy surrounding Dance Marathon, even just like the lead up to Dance Marathon. It's just nothing like how it is on this campus.
Really?
I know several universities this past weekend, they held their version of
Yeah,
Dance
I know
Marathon.
Toledo did too.
Yeah.
Because obviously, putting this stuff together, we would, keep up on social media, not just what we were tweeting, but what other people were tweeting. So we had to keep
yeah.
up on, make sure that it was us. It was a Bowling Green Dance Marathon that people were tweeting about because a bunch of different schools were doing an event similar.
Yeah, and I did see a Snapchat from a friend of mine that goes to Toledo, and not that it wasn't as much fun as ours, but it certainly didn't look like there was many people. And
it's really big on BG's campus, really big.
Yeah, and that's great. Here we are 20 years later, and it's still going. And it's amazing to see those miracle children there, that they bring in toys for them. They brought like playhouses in and stuff for them. And they just think that they're
fun. They had fun.
we're here to have fun. I'm not here to feel sorry for myself. You guys, you dancers, I'm sorry you have to be on your feet for 32 hours, but you're here to play with me.
Right.
Like. And I know, Katie, you covered the nighttime graveyard shift.
Yes.
And then you were also there when I came back Sunday morning. And
Yep.
Yeah.
I had my reporting stint from, I think it was 1 to 6 p.m. and then I came back at 9:30 and I was there from 9:30 p.m. until 8 a.m. And I was mainly a videographer for that whole time. So I went out and I got to shoot everything.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah,
that was
interact with the
that was the really fun experience for me. Was I was able to move around and do many things. I was videographer, I was editor, I was kind of coordinator. It was fun because I was there from 8 in the morning Saturday until I think 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. So I was there for a big
you were
chunk,
there probably
and
the most of all of us.
It was exhausting, but it was well worth it because you got to do so many different things. I mean, at one point I was doing the cha-cha slide with a camera on my shoulder,
don't forget,
which was fun.
There was another point too. You were not here, Brooke, but around 4 a.m. or so, Matt actually decided to dance to Frozen.
I was.
So
yes,
he had his
so sorry I missed
that.
At that point, it's the same as the dances. You do anything just to sort of keep the energy going, to keep you up and keep you moving.
Yeah, and I know that they taught all of the dancers a choreographed 2.5-minute dance.
They did, and they would add on to it every couple hours is what they would do. So they would do a section, then they would add a section, then they would add a section. And I mean, it was really cool, really interesting, but let me tell you what, eventually those songs because they played over
Was
and
that
over
Uptown
and over.
Funk by any chance?
Oh, yes. I think I heard that song so many times.
At least
I
20
almost got
times.
sick of
At
it.
least
yeah.
20 times that
I
night.
almost got sick of it. I love that song. Yeah, and the Disney songs that they played, I think, and I actually interviewed one of the DJs there, and he said that they very strategically picked the songs that they were going to play.
Oh yeah.
They did not pick anything that was kind of mellow out, relax. He said it was all very high energy, keep everybody on their feet, jumping, moving, make sure nobody is in the feels about the songs that they're playing or anything.
Yeah. And I know after they kind of did a shift at midnight because that's when their late night thing started. Because obviously kids were on during the day, so they had to play more appropriate music. And when the night came out, that's when more of your college, their kind of music came out and was thumping loud, especially on the rave.
Yeah, and Dance Marathon this year, it was a great fun. It's great every year. It's a great fundraising event every year, but this year particularly because they broke through that ceiling,
record.
Their record and raising over $300,000, excuse me. But and I hope that in years to come for Dance Marathon, that keeps becoming a thing. Keep breaking through the record, keep breaking through the ceiling.
That's the goal every year, I would think, is to beat the previous years. So.
Yeah. Well, coming up when we return, the panel and I will discuss a string of related robberies in Bowling Green. Stay with us. In less than a month's time, 3 different car dealerships in Bowling Green were victims of theft. Starting last month, Al Smith Chrysler, Jeep and Ram, Lincoln Auto Sales, and Thayer Toyota were all hit. The thieves are stealing rims and tires from cars in the lots. This has caused thousands of dollars of loss for these dealerships. The Wood County Sheriff's Office is currently investigating. Well, I know as anchors for Tuesday and Thursday, we've read tons of stories about this. And I even asked one time, I said, okay, did we fix this? Because this was in the script last week, and you said, no, something else happened.
Yep, I had to keep adding on to the story because it happened. It started last month, as we said, with Al Smith, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram. They were actually hit twice within 2 weeks. Over $30,000 of rims and tires was stolen from them, which was the most out of all of the different dealerships. And then, throughout the next couple of weeks, Lincoln Auto was hit, Thayer was hit, more thousands of dollars was stolen, and now actually a 5th One was hit, not in Bowling Green, just outside of Bowling Green, in Woodville, was hit this past Friday. So obviously it's being investigated because something's going on.
They have to be linked because, I mean,
that's what I was about to
someone
say,
need
yeah.
that and they keep consistently taking the same thing?
In the same area,
Right,
you know,
right.
so have there been any details about, you know, is it the same group of people? Is it the same person?
That's what the big question is, and that's what, you know, is being investigated at the moment because, you know, you would think that it could just be, you know, a crew doing it and doing it again and again and again, or it could be more like a copycat kind of crimes where, you know, someone said, oh, this crew got away with it, so now we're going to try it, and that's what it's being looked into right now.
Yeah, I think is a theme with a lot of crimes, you know, oh, well, apparently that's really easy to get away with, so I'll do it too, which concerns me because you would think that when one of your neighbor car dealerships has something like that happen to them, you increase your security no matter what. You turn your cameras on, you turn your lights on. You know, so what's going on here?
Well, I mean, there's probably only so much they can do. I mean, obviously they probably have some sort of security set up, but you know, that costs money to put bigger, higher security, money that they might not probably have, and especially after, you know, losing, you know, $30,000, and then you're like, okay, well, I cannot definitely afford more security now.
Yeah, well, and I can't imagine this is not a quiet crime. Like this is not. I mean, you have to. I don't know a ton about cars, but taking rims off is not a small task.
No, yeah.
Like that, you know, that requires cranking.
Right. I mean, like, and that's why, you know, you would think that experienced people are doing this, people who do know cars, because they go, they hit, they move. That's what I would think what is happening here. Don't obviously know for sure. I mean, no one knows for sure yet because it's still being investigated. There's like no leads at all right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know Amy, as a new person in this town, as a freshman, you know, it's probably kind of scary to hear like, oh my gosh, like all these robberies are happening, all these crime, and in a town that you sort of think is fairly safe, right?
Right. I mean, it's such a small area. You wouldn't think that this many, especially the same crime would reoccur every single week. I mean, again, like you said, we read the story on the news, and then next week we read the same thing, and you just think it's an addition to the same one from last week, but really it's a different one.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder too, is this an inside job? You know, is this somebody who works at one of these dealerships who, you know, knows what security they're getting around, you know, what strategically is planning what time this is going to happen, because to my knowledge these are happening at night, correct?
Yes.
You know, and it'd obviously be sort of stupid to do it during the day.
Right, broad daylight,
Yeah, but you know, there's got to be a time, you know, maybe at like 3 a.m. they cut the lights off to save energy for electricity, and whoever is, you know, committing these strands of robberies knows that.
Right, and you said it does take a lot of, you know, experience to know how to take these things off. So it's obviously someone who knows what they're doing and knows the ins and outs of a car.
Yeah,
and it's not just BG either. Obviously, looking into similar crimes, the Wood County has mentioned that Michigan, there's been some of these things in Atlanta. So even like bigger cities, this kind of thing would go on. But yeah, like you mentioned earlier, that's why it's more of a shock when a smaller town like BG, that sort of thing happens, and you know, it's kind of worrisome that people are getting away with this so easily.
Yeah, so, and you know, maybe they will turn up because odds are they're taking these and they're reselling them.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they're doing with them, because they're worth, these rims and tires are not cheap. I mean, if you ever had to replace one on your car, it's expensive.
It's
expensive. So
a low price item at all. Well, hopefully, you know, this investigation continues and get this figured out, you know, because this town cannot afford that kind of crime rate there. Well, coming up, we will discuss a recent film festival for students on campus. Stay with us. The BGSU Film Festival was this past weekend. Reporter Amy Steigerwald tells us about the student films that were screened.
BGSU featured its film students in a 48-hour film festival this past weekend. Student films were screened and their student directors got the chance to experience a live audience. BG Reel Productions president Desiree Holton says the film festival has changed spearheads and titles over the years, but is still over a decade old.
It's difficult to answer how many years that the festival has been going on because the festival has gone through name changes throughout its history. So we have tracked back the history of this festival to approximately 15 years with all the different name changes and variations that the festival had throughout the years.
6 different categories were featured in the festival: narrative drama, horror, comedy, experimental, documentary, and music video. The student films were judged throughout the weekend.
Those films are screened in front of 3 judges from outside of the university who will be giving their scores based on stuff like cinematography, acting, and a lot of different technical elements as well as creative elements.
Holton says this is a great way for students to have professionals outside the university view their work.
So to get fresh eyes on our students' work is really important and very valuable for them as they move forward with those critiques.
Student director and officer Connor Dedick enjoyed his behind-the-scenes look this year while also presenting one of his films.
It's just been really cool to see all the student work that kind of goes on that you don't really hear about outside of classes, and like also get a chance to get your work shown to like some actual judges from outside of the school as well.
Reporting for BG24 News, I'm Mimi Stegerwald.
Well, Desiree in the story not only works with BG Reel, but also won the Best Director Award.
She did, yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And did she talk to you at all about that, or?
Well, when I talked to her at the time, she hadn't won yet.
Yeah.
I went to there the first day of the festival because Dance Marathon was all weekend. So I got to kind of see how everything was at the start before all the chaos had ensued, and everyone had not seen any films yet, so it was kind of just fresh eyes on everything. It was a really cool atmosphere, I will say, to go into. I didn't expect such an antique area.
The Gish is a really cool,
the Gish is a cool
really cool theater.
It was very cool. It felt kind of 20s, 40s kind of feel. It was really awesome, a good atmosphere to have it in. Again, I was not there. I did not, unfortunately, get to see who the winners were. We do have the winners.
I have a list, yeah, and like there was like Best in Show, which was Under the Influence, Best Narrative Drama, Could Have Been, Best Narrative Horror, Showgirl, and the list goes on and on. They also have like Best Experimental, Best Music Video, Best Animation.
Yeah, they had a bunch of categories.
Actress, Director, Cinematography, Editing, Original Score, you name it, which I think is really cool that it's that lengthy and in-depth, and it's huge. A lot of films are submitted, a lot.
Right, and it's cool that all of these these movies are all BG students. They're all original work that they created here on campus, which is so impressive to me.
Yeah, and now the basis of this whole 48-hour film festival is...
It's not the 48 hour.
Oh, it's not?
That takes place earlier in the year.
Oh, okay, so what's the difference between 48 hour and this?
Well, this one is just, the students have like unlimited time basically to shoot and create these films.
Okay, I see.
And anyone can do it. You don't even have to be a film student. Obviously, majority of them are film students.
Yeah, that makes
but you
sense.
can be any student because as long as you submit it by their deadline and follow their registration fee and all that different things. The 48-hour festival, that's when they are given 48 hours to shoot a topic and then screen that, which is a little different.
Yeah, and it makes sense, most of them are film, but there were 3 groups contests there that were not film, and which is cool because that just means that that's something that they like to do, They could be like a nursing major, but, I like to spend my time on the weekends acting and filming and editing, which is kind of a cool hobby, and I suppose, it's sort of a niche skill, which maybe at some point in their lives will get them a job. I don't know a whole lot about what kind of jobs you get with film.
I mean, I've been involved in some productions. I've never submitted anything to this, but yeah, it does take experience to do, setting up your actors, your getting all the cinematography, everything down pat, and editing. That can take quite a while too. It's definitely a really cool skill set that, a lot of these students require, especially the film ones, because that's the industry they're getting into.
Right, and this is a good opportunity for them, as Desiree pointed out in the interview, to get their work out to other people, just like we do BG24, so we can have experience. This is their way to get experience, their way to get their name out there, and their way to get their work viewed with eyes, again, that are not BGSU professors or BGSU staff members. They're different, unbiased groups who can maybe take their film and bring it with them somewhere else and see
people
where
that maybe offer another perspective as well. And so were the directors of these films involved in other areas of production? Do you know?
Yes. Well, the one person I interviewed, his name was Connor. He was a director of one of the movies, and there's also kind of, I don't know how to word this, maybe an executive board that runs this entire festival.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a member of that. So he explained that he not only got to, make a film, but he also got to see the other films that were made and see what work other students produced, and he said that was very cool, which I think would be too.
That's another like a huge part of it. It's not only, you know, filming your own and showing your own, but watching other people's, because that's how you can learn. That's how you can gain experiences, by viewing the other ones.
Right, and viewing the different styles, viewing the
different
different types of
styles.
work that were in this festival.
Yeah, and so did the directors like go up there and present their own film, or was it just like their name was in the credits?
It was kind of, there were different, each day was designated to a different
Genre, category.
Yeah, different category. Actually, not necessarily a category. They would go from comedy to horror to next day this, and this, and this, and this. So it's kind of just like sporadic wherever. I think that kind of gave the audience more of a, you know, not watching the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah,
you
which
know?
is good. And there was a time limit on these. I'm assuming, like, not to make them, but they had to be like a 5-minute film. Or
I know for like the entries that there was like a minimum, and like the different categories had a certain minimum and maximum. I'm not sure if there was, probably at some point, but I think like the minimum for some of these were only like a couple minutes, because like the music videos and like the animation and other stuff like that, you're not expecting to be as long as, you know, your scripted comedy or scripted drama.
Right. Music video is only a couple.
Oh, yeah.
Minutes.
Yeah. So, was there any like provided criteria of how these were judged, or like how people won what? Was there like, okay, this is kind of the plot you have to stick with, or?
I think they had a lot of freedom from what Desiree made it sound.
Oh, yeah.
I do know that she explained the judging process, that they watched, the judges would watch, 3 judges would, you know, judge, give them scores, and then at the end of the weekend they would be announced. And obviously
On
you
Sunday.
gave us some of those results there. But again, it was a very cool, different event to go to for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is really definitely kind of a unique thing that BG
Right.
does, and it's cool to see. You know, it's cool to see that students get so active in that. It really is. Well, coming up, the panel and I will wrap up our show and talk about a concert held on campus last night. Stay with us. Well, last night a very hyped up event was held at the BGSU Stroh Center last night. Nick Jonas came and performed for campus and community members alike. You know, so you could buy tickets if you were a student, but you could also buy your tickets and just come to the show.
Anyone can come.
I did not know that. I thought it was just for students. And I got there and there were 13-year-old girls everywhere.
I'm sure.
Everywhere. And I was just so shocked. I was like, why are these 13-year-old girls on a college campus? What are you doing? Like, and they were with their moms, you know, they had t-shirts. I just did not think that, you know, BG had the capability to pull something that big
Yeah,
off.
he is. He's a pretty big rising
Yeah.
star.
He is. And the Stroh Center does events like this, you know, throughout the year, concerts and whatnot.
Yeah. You know, I know last year they had Florida Georgia Line and B.O.B. Was at the beginning of this school year. And then they had Cobra Starship, and you know, and I know that this concert last night in particular, they were between Fall Out Boy and Nick Jonas, and it, you know, happened to be what date worked for who.
Right.
But you know, in either one, really, that's a big name to have.
It is, yeah.
Come here.
And tickets were what, $10?
They were not bad.
Especially
no.
for students, yeah. They got discounted.
Yeah, and they had good opening acts too. They had a gal that came all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and played her own guitar and sang and everything. It was a cool event.
I
you
would
know?
say that'd be interesting to cover, like I know you guys did.
Yeah, we got right down there in the sound booth and were able to film, and yeah, it was exciting, you know. And the people that we interviewed, we were unfortunately not allowed to interview Nick Jonas, but he was probably in concert mode anyway, you know. But that's okay. But the people were really excited about it, particularly the UAO people who organized the whole event, and kudos to them because they pulled off an extravagant event.
Yeah.
It really was a great thing for them to be able to do. Well, that's it for BG24 News Producers Panel tonight. You can check out these stories and more on youtube.com/BG24News. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and feel free to tweet us your thoughts on these stories and issues. Have a good night, everyone.
It's